If you could only perfect one aspect of shrimp keeping, you'd be very smart to perfect your feeding. It is easily the most influential factor in shrimp breeding. If you can get your feeding right, the rest of your tank's issues will be heavily minimized for the most part. Let me show you what I feed my tanks every day, and hopefully you can take some inspiration and learn something new. Now, if you were listening closely, you just heard me refer to feeding my shrimp tanks every day. That's right. Each and every shrimp tank you will see in this video gets food 7 times a week. That may shock some of you, and once you see how much I'm feeding, you may be even more shocked. Please hold your comments until the end, and hopefully I can convince you that I'm not grossly overfeeding my shrimp. I like to think the results speak for themselves, but I will take the time to explain things as I go along. If you've watched my videos before, this is a tank you are very familiar with. This tank has tons and tons of red cherry shrimp in it, and in the last year the population has really exploded. I attribute this population growth solely to the change in my feeding habits, which are what I'm about to show you. It all starts with a coffee grinder. A lot of my shrimp breeding success comes from this thing right here. As you can see, I use a high protein fish flake and blend it into a powder. This has become the staple food for my shrimp tanks. It also has done an amazing job of raising up these fish fry, but that's beside the point. Now that we have our powdered food, what do we actually do with it? Allow me to show you tank by tank and explain the rationale behind what I feed and why I do it. I take a big pinch of this food and I sprinkle it right on the surface above the air stone. The reason I put it here is to distribute the food all over the tank. You can see here that it reaches just about every square inch of the tank within about 30 seconds. I feed this tank every single day in this method, and I have no issues with water quality. The plants are thriving as a result of all the nutrients in the water as well. I want this tank to produce as many shrimp as possible, so naturally they get a lot of food. This is my yellow tank. Now you may notice that the moss is really stringy and spread out, and admittedly that is my fault. I let the duckweed run wild, and the moss was not getting the light that it needed. I'm going to prevent that in the future by making sure to remove duckweed more diligently. Either way, the process in this tank is very similar, with one thing being added. I take a nice healthy pinch of powdered food and sprinkle it in. This tank is twice the size as the one you just saw, and can easily house 1,000 plus shrimp. Later in the day, I put in a pellet of shrimp envy or some of these algae wafers broken into quarters. This is just to further nourish the colony and boost the numbers even higher. More food equals more shrimp. It really is as simple as that. Obviously you can overdo it, but in general it's a good rule of thumb. So now we get to my newest tank, which is these blue shrimp. This tank has been doing really good actually, and there's a lot of thriving juveniles. I feed this tank almost exclusively powdered food, and toss in a pellet once in a while to get an idea of how many shrimp there are. You'll notice that a lot of my footage is of shrimp swarming pellets, as it's the only way that I know of to consistently get them to congregate. You'll notice that this tank gets much less food since there are so few shrimp by comparison. Next is our other red shrimp tank. This tank came from a buried red mother that unfortunately did not make it. I removed her eggs and hatched them in this tank. There are probably a dozen or so shrimp in here with a few buried ones. I feed this tank pretty lightly, but will be sure to increase the amount as soon as babies are born. This tank here is a little off topic, but these baby white cloud minnows are also eating this powdered food, and they've been doing it since the 3rd day that they were born. It's the only food they've ever had, and they're doing excellent. Okay, so that covers the general feeding for the most part. Keep in mind, the entire goal of this approach is to ensure that no shrimp are left hungry. The powder gets all over the tank and reaches every little nook and cranny. Our babies will have access to food regardless of where they are hiding, and our adults will roam around the tank picking up fine particles around the clock. Now, this is the bulk of what there is to know about feeding, but there are other things to be wary of, which I will cover in a future video. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, please leave a like, and if you want to see more in the future, please subscribe. Thanks again, and happy shrimp keeping.